Alright guys, so we're just going to run through the exercise assignment for this week. Some of you have asked for an actual video going through it, and so that's what we're going to do real quick. So at the top of your paper, again, this is a watercolor paper, so make sure it's the thicker paper. It's got a little bit of a texture to it. We're just going to create two boxes here at the top. And one will say wet on wet. So that means we're going to use a wet brush on wet paper. This one over here is going to be wet on dry. So we're going to use a wet brush on dry paper. Then we're going to come down here, create a longer bar, and this is going to be ombre. So we're going to go from color to white. Another one down here, and this is going to be called combination. Alright, so we're going to have two colors that merge in the middle. And then we're going to practice that one 3 times with different colors. And then over here we'll just draw a couple of shapes, like what's in the written part of the exercises. Okay. Alright, so for the wet on wet, you need your water. And in your palette, you want to go ahead and build up a puddle of water. Okay, so this is watercolor. It's going to be thinner, more transparent than acrylic paint. So if it looks like you can see your brush strokes on the paper, or if you're scooping up paste out of this, then that means you don't have enough water. So you can really see all that water just sitting right there inside the palette. Alright. Now we're going to go ahead and paint a clear rectangle in this wet on wet rectangle. Now you want enough water on the page that gives it a glossy texture or a glossy appearance, but if you have standing water or puddles, then you do want to kind of blot that up. That's too much water on your page and you won't have an even smooth blending of color. Alright, so we'll take our color, it doesn't matter which color you use, and if you just tap it here, you can see how the color spreads out and bleeds through the rest of the paper. So then you can just kind of smear that in. This technique is really good for skies, blending two different colors together and creating like an even wash of color. Because as this dries, this is all going to smooth out. Alright, the next one is wet on dry. So that means it's a wet brush on dry paper and we're not going to get the paper wet. So just go ahead and load your brush with some paint and make a couple of lines. So you can see this is really good for detail work, sharp edges. The amount of pressure that you put on the brush will determine how thick your line is. Okay, so that was a heavy pressure. This is light pressure. Okay, you can change the pressure as you go through the brush strokes. Alright, so just practice making a couple different types of strokes in that little box right there. Rinse out your brush. Alright, so for ombre, let's change the colors. So let's load up the green palette with some water. Alright, so now we want to go from color on this side to white or a really light version. So whenever I'm shading in like a shape and I want it to fade like that, I'll start on the side where I want the heavy amount of color. And you're just dragging the paint over. Now I won't go any further than the midway or that midpoint, because then you'd rinse your brush out. Even out that paint. And now I have a clean brush with no paint on it. And I'm just going to gently grab some of this paint over here and bring it over. And I'm just going to keep using kind of like oval shading directions. Alright, so now we have a heavy amount of paint here, and a lighter value over there. That's what the ombre is, and that's the kind of technique that you will use for your color wheel. All right, now the combination is the same idea, but you're just using two different colors. Now you want to use colors that are close to each other on the color wheel. So blue and green, blue and purple, red and yellow, red and orange, red and purple. Those are analogous colors, colors that are close to each other on the color wheel. So if we have green here, I'm going to mix it with blue. And the reason you want to choose colors that are close to each other on the color wheel is because if you choose colors that are directly across from each other, those won't blend very well to create good like middle colors. They'll kind of create kind of like a neutral or like a brown color here in the middle. All right, as opposed to like a really smooth transition. So here's my green. And I'm overlapping those colors. It's the same technique that we use with like color pencils. You are overlapping colors. And even when you get here to the middle, if you want to, you can try and like dab the colors in order to mix them. I know it looks splotchy right here, but if you even it out pretty good, as the paint dries, it will soften up and you won't have those heavy colors or heavy puddles, unless you just have too much water. But you can see it's a smooth transition from like green right here, a smooth transition between green, blue, green, and blue. There's no like hard lines to divide each of those colors. All right, so now you can choose some different colors. If we go with red, and we can have that meet yellow. Again, make sure you get enough water in there. If it looks like you're scooping up paste, you need some more water. And I'm just going in there and mixing right on the page. And then you can blot at the edges. Kind of helps blend those in. I got a little bit of red still on there, so it's kind of muddying up that yellow, but it's okay. All right, one more. So let's do purple. Okay. And pink, how about that? Because pink is kind of in the red family, so it's close enough. It should work well with that purple. Mix those right on the page. All right, so it looks like that purple might overwhelm the pink a little bit. So then I will go back, pick up some more pink, and start to bring it over until I get that smooth transition. Okay, so now this last piece right here is really just showing how you can paint around different shapes. Okay, and if you're careful, you can keep water out of those shapes. And you may want to change the sizes of the brush that you use. You may want to maintain a little bit of a white outline between the edges of the shape and your outside color. And so as you do that, just work on practicing your blending out to white. And trying not to get any like really hard edges. And then this also lets you see exactly how far watercolors can go, because a lot of times people will paint watercolors like they would with acrylic paint, and it's not meant to be a solid application of color. It's meant to be very transparent, very watery. Don't be afraid of the water. Okay, when in doubt, add more. And just work on blending those colors out. And again, you'll use the wet on dry. So my brush is wet, but the paper is dry right here where I've been adding the color.
Crystal White, could you call 700, please? Crystal White, call 700.
And you can work on blending colors. And just carry that out. All right. And once you get that, you guys are done. Take a picture and send it to me through email or haiku.